Good morning. Welcome to This Week.
So help you God, so help me God.
The president takes a stand.
We are made for this moment, and we will seize it.
How far will he push in his new term? The Secretary of State takes on her critics.
What difference at this point does it make?
And tough words as Republicans regroup.
We've got to stop being the stupid party.
Plus, senators crossing the aisle to work on immigration reform. What's in their plan? We'll ask our headliners, Arizona Republican Senator John McCain and New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. Then our powerhouse roundtable takes on all the week's politics. And is there really a controversy over this?
You know who caught her? Lance Armstrong. Yeah, he is such a stickler for the truth now.
Joining us, George Will, Democratic strategist Donna Brazile, Republican Congressman Dave Schweikert, New Republic publisher and Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes, and the host of NPR's Morning Edition, Steve Inskeep.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Reporting from the Newseum in Washington, Martha Raddatz.
Hello, great to have you with us. George is off this weekend. So much to get to this morning, including that controversy over the Oscar-nominated film Zero Dark 30 and so-called enhanced interrogation. Mark Bowl, the producer and screenwriter, is here to answer critics. But first, front and center this morning, Washington is set to tackle an immigration overhaul. The president is planning to speak about it on Tuesday, and our two headlining senators are working on a plan as well. Let's start with Arizona Republican Senator and ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, John McCain. Welcome, Senator McCain. You have spent a great deal of time in your career working on immigration issues. When do you think you can get this bipartisan plan out? And how much can you tell us about what's in it?
Well, we're going to be announcing the principles that will be guiding our translation of it into legislation. We've still got a lot of hard work ahead, but I'm very pleased with the progress. Frankly,
you're announcing this week?
Yeah, we'll be Senator Menendez and I, and Senator Schumer, Senator Graham, Senator Durbin, and we've been working together for some weeks now. We'll be coming forward. It's not that much different from what we tried to do in 2007. Martha, what's changed is that there is a new, I think, appreciation on both sides of the aisle, including, maybe more importantly, on the Republican side of the aisle, that we have to enact a comprehensive immigration reform bill.
So this is comprehensive. It's not piecemeal.
Yeah, this piecemeal stuff, the way the Senate works, very briefly, is that if you bring up one section of it, somebody has an amendment that brings up another part.
We've seen a lot of that lately. We've definitely seen a lot of that lately. But what about a path to citizenship?
That has to be also part of it. But, you know, from my perspective also, and I'm sure that Senator Menendez understands, as Senator Schumer and Durbin do, that my state, most of the drugs now coming across the Mexican border into the United States comes through across the Arizona-Sonora border. So border enforcement also is a very important aspect of this. We have made progress on border enforcement. There has been significant improvements, but we've still got a ways to go. But I'm confident, guardedly optimistic that this time we can get it done.
Citizenship is obviously the most controversial aspect for some of your Republican colleagues. And you've gone back and forth. In 2005, you were for it. By 2010, you wanted border security first and, quote, certainly no amnesty. So you're solidly behind a pathway to citizenship. How do you convince some of those Republicans who are not behind it?
Well, first of all, I've always been for border security. I mean, there are citizens in my state who do not live in a secure environment. We live in a pretty secure environment here. Certainly in the Senate, we've got guards around everything. There's people every night in the southern part of my state that have drug traffickers and people going across the guns.
So how do you convince Republicans about the path to citizenship?
Well, I'll give you a little straight talk. Look at the last election. Look at the last election. We are losing dramatically the Hispanic vote, which we think should be ours for a variety of reasons, and we've got to understand that. Second of all, we can't go on forever with 11 million people living in this country in the shadows in an illegal status. We cannot forever have children who were born here, who were brought here by their parents when they were small children, to live in the shadows as well. So I think the time is right. By the way, we just acted to avert a nuclear option in the Senate. Believe it or not, I see some glimmer of bipartisanship out there.
How about, we've got President Obama out this week also pushing a plan.
Yes.
Does that help, hurt?
I think it helps. I think it's important that we all work together on this. I think it can be helpful, and I look forward to us sitting down. I'm sure we will, the group of us who are working on this legislation with the President and the White House and our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol.
I want to move to Benghazi. Obviously, the hearings this week, some very contentious part of those hearings. What were you really trying to accomplish in that? You knew a lot of the answers. All the senators knew a lot of the answers because of the Accountability Review Board. So what were you looking for there?
Well, first of all, we don't know a lot of the answers. We don't know why the President and the Secretary of State ignored the warnings. Why didn't the Secretary of State, who said she was, quote, clear-eyed about it, not see the cable that came on August 15th that said the consulate cannot stand a sustained attack on the consulate? Why wasn't Department of Defense assets there in 7 hours? That went on. Two of these people.
Some of those questions were
killed.
answered in the review. Some of the questions have come out of the Pentagon and have been answered about why it took so long.
Actually, not satisfactorily. Why in the world on September 11th, of all days, with all these warnings, didn't we have assets there for 7 hours? There's so many questions that are unanswered.
So this is not over in your mind at all?
What did the President do during this period of time? There's 2 movies been made about getting bin Laden with every tick-tock of every minute. We still don't know what the President was doing. But more importantly, Martha, more importantly than that, very quickly, is what's happening all over North Africa. What's happening in the Middle East? Things are deteriorating in a rapid fashion, and it's because of a lack of American leadership.
Deteriorating certainly in North Africa. A lot of presence of Al Qaeda. Let's
Iraq,
also talk about. Let's go to Syria. Let's talk about Syria. I actually spoke to Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta last week about Syria, and he had some pretty alarming things to say. He basically said those shells that the U.S. knew they were loading, artillery shells, are still sitting there loaded with chemical weapons. Take a listen to this.
Well, they'd have to obviously decide whether they're going to put them on planes or try to load them into artillery, weapons of one kind or another. There are different ways to deploy this stuff.
Are we talking about minutes, hours?
I think it's the kind of thing that would still take a matter of hours to be able to do it.
That's the red line for the Obama administration, but you have really backed arming the rebels and a no-fly zone.
Yes, the rebels are, Bashar Assad is being supplied by the Russians and the Iranians with Iranian Revolutionary Guard on the ground with weapons. Everything that the opponents of intervening in Syria said would happen if we did have now happened because we haven't. The president said it's a red line, the use of chemical weapons. Bashar views that as a green light for everything less than that.
How do you know who the rebels
people have been
How
killed.
do you know who those rebels are you're arming?
I've met them.
You haven't met them all.
No, but I've certainly met enough to know who they are. But the sad news is that as every day goes by, more and more jihadists gain more and more influence, and there's more and more of their presence, which is going to make the post-Bashar Assad situation even more and more complicated. The jihadists are pouring in there. So, of course, I know who they are.
Tell me quickly, Chuck Hagel.
Yeah.
Does he have your backing now? You met with him this week.
No, but I want to see what happens in the hearing, and I think it'd be important to make a judgment after that.
Are you
very
closer
concerned.
than you were before? You had specific concerns. Did he answer those concerns?
Not really. We had I think, a good conversation. We've been friends for many years. So we'll see what happens in the hearings here.
Big news this week on lifting the ban for women in combat. Supporter of that, or you're a little worried about the...
No, I support it. I think women are prepared to serve side by side with men in combat. I just want to emphasize, though, there should be the same physical and mental standards for anyone to perform certain roles and functions in the military.
And they say there will be. How about selective service? Women?
I was just going to say, I think we ought to grapple with that one. Maybe maybe we'll draft you first, Martha.
Okay, I'll volunteer before that. Thank
Okay.
you so much for joining us, Senator McCain.